back, everybody. It's another episode of The Business Therapist. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, and I'm here with your host, Tanyag, Arnell Tanyag. I'm just going to start referring to you by your last name. We're here with Tanyag and Jones. Tanyag and Jones.
Sounds like a law firm.
It does, yes. Tanyag and Jones. I love it. Good. Tim, you're back. You're back with us, Tim. Welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Awesome. Arnell, I'll let you kind of take first share here because I know you've got some perspective. I mean, we're talking about whether to go it alone or to go free, or how do you know when to ask for help, reach out for help. So
this episode is, I talked to a lot of business owners, and it's interesting. And I'm the reason I invited Tim because I've known Tim for almost 10 plus years. And I wanted Tim to share, from the years we've known each other, you've seen your business grow to where it is now, really focus on personas, nice niches. Where do you, from our long history together, when does a business owner start looking for help? How do they choose help? Because it's interesting in today's landscape, people think free is good, and free is really good, or they spend the money, but they don't know if they chose the right thing. And then they're spending the money but they're feeling good, but the business isn't moving in the right direction. And by the time I get introduced or they've been referred to me, they're spent, not only financially, mentally and emotionally, and they're not really sure they want to be in business anymore, or they're gotten burned. So tell us a little bit what when did you have to get help? How do we meet? And then why did you choose someone like my company? Because it's interesting. A lot of owners, their biggest challenges is, do I look for help? How do I look for help? And they look for help when they're getting to be at a dangerous position where they're not sure and they're struggling. And sometimes it's really hard to turn it around when they're really mentally and emotionally struggling. And then if they're struggling, it's really, really hard to turn it around.
It's interesting. I have a couple buddies that I meet with every now and then, and we just talk a little shop. And one of the things we've always talked about is if we can go back in time and tell ourselves something to help us move forward, it would have been get a coach and a mentor much sooner. I think I did with what a lot of people do in America when they start a business, especially without a college background, is you tend to think that you've got to be the guy with all the solutions and all the answers. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was definitely like I fell into that trap of thinking I had to know everything, thinking I had to be the guy. And it was just through hitting the wall enough that you just kind of go, well, look, I don't know everything. And I think when you realize that you don't have to have all the answers. There are people out there who have been through it, who have helped people, who have worked through it, that know things that you don't know, have access to things that you may not be aware of. It's better to connect with them and learn from their mistakes and their experience, right? Versus burning through all your cash and getting burnt out and essentially just frustrated and ready to give in. And so for me, it was me coming to that place of realizing, like, look, I'm not going to try and figure this out on my own. I've been doing this. I think at the time when we started working on Arnell, I've been a freelancer for about 8 to 10 years. And it was always, when I save enough money, I'm going to hire that first person. And that just never happens. Something happens, something blows up, and the money that you have been saving goes towards whatever that explosion was and putting out that fire. And so after a while, you're just like, look, somebody's got to help me figure this out, or we've got to do something else. And so that was that moment for me. And the reason why Tanyag was, he had already made the investment, right? He had already pursued us. He had already, been checking in on us, seeing how we were doing. Every networking function that we bumped into each other at, he would connect, reach out, and follow up. Mm-hmm. So there was definitely trust there. I'd seen his track record with some other folks, so there were results that we were seeing as well. And he was filling in gaps of what we were doing. I think when in our first year working together, not even our first year, it was within like the first 2 to 3 months we were working together, he fixed some stuff in our profitability model that just changed everything. So much to the degree that I became very okay with reducing my company revenue for a little while. And Arnell had to get on me because he was like, you're getting real comfortable here. But it was like, I just never had that much extra money from the work we were doing. That I was like, I don't have to make this much to pay the bills and breathe. I can make this much, and that's okay. And my wife and I went on our first vacation in quite a few years that year as well. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
I was going to ask, what was the first thing that he did? It sounds like, so the revenue model coming in, and how did that go down? Was it like, did he have you pull out spreadsheets, and they were like, how did that discovery happen, and how did the change happen?
I think we were pretty transparent, so we didn't even have to really necessarily pull out the spreadsheets as much as he just asked a direct question. And for me at the time, it was pretty obvious. I was experimenting with the subcontractor, and I was giving them half the revenue, right? Like whatever came in, it was just half. And so I was just trying to figure out how to do things. And Arnell was like, no. You do a bit more than half the work. And where's, like there needs to be what he gets paid for what he does, what you get paid for what you do, the stuff to cover the bills, and then the profit over here. So he's like, this is all wrong.
Yeah, wow. Nice. You got to love it when they don't sugarcoat it. You're like, just tell me how it is, because I need to know. That's really good.
Yeah. So no wasted time there. I mean, I think we did that over like a 20-minute call.
Wow.
Yeah, we talked about that. That was fun.
I love that. What's it like working with, I mean, I get to see Arnell this way through a show, but I've got to imagine like when he's in consulting mode, it's different. What's it like working with Arnell? What's he like?
It's really cool because Arnell's not like, he's going to be upfront and honest with you. He's going to be blunt with you, but he's also going to urge you to think, right? And that's very key. Like you're never going to, it's weird, right? So, and this is going to sound crazy because he never puts you in a position where you feel like you're dependent on him, but you come to rely on him because of that, right? So I'll come to Arnell and I'll say, man, I'm thinking about doing this. And he's like, okay, well, tell me how you think you're going to do that. And so I'll lay out 3 or 4 different things, and he just talks me through each one of those situations. And then he says, I really think based on what you're telling me and your goals, this sounds like the one that's right. Do you agree, or were you thinking something else? What's going on?
So good. That's that sounding board, Arnell, that you talk about, like, just being a sounding board for people. It's invaluable. How do you can't be your own sounding board,
No.
No, you can't. And I think that the hardest thing for business owners, like, I think they've never heard that before because they keep all the sound in their head. You can't talk to your spouse.
Yeah, that's hard.
You can't talk. Don't talk to your employees. That's a kiss to death.
Yeah.
And then if you talk to other people who don't own a business, or even they own a business, they just try to tell you to fix it. Or the people tell you you don't own the business. Well, why don't you just, what's the problem? You're making money. They think you're doing really well. And then it's even harder when you can't figure out how to scale it and how to, who to target, who to go after. And I think it's more difficult now because now we have access to all this free information, free. Right. People are taking it all in, but they're not really doing anything with it. And I know there's a short time frame. They got 3 to 5 years so they get that thing moving and scale. Because even Tim and I talk about it. If you've been a business owner for like 3, 5, 7 years, you're always on that marathon. You're taking that breath. Okay, let me get in there again. Let me go give another 6 months, And eventually it doesn't become exciting anymore. It becomes more of a burden. I tell people, you sure you want to be in a business? Because it's really, really hard. It's really, what I mean, it's not that simple. Yeah. If you buy a franchise, maybe the model's laid out. If you're not, you're creating a new product or service, you really got to grind it out. But you got to grind it out where you can put people and processes in place. And people wait too late to get help. They wait till they're desperately struggling. And
I was going to ask. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, Tim, on that. Like, how did you know when to ask for help? Was it just were things tight? I mean, besides the fact that Arnell was consistent at events and showing up and checking in, like, how did you know it was time to pull the trigger?
A few things. Like, the one is, and I'll give a little inside tip for people who don't know from the marketing side. Free is designed to get you in as a lead.
Right.
It's not designed to solve the problem. So grab as many of those free things as you want. Just realize they won't apply to you in the way that you need them to. You have to talk to the person who developed it, figure out how it applies. So that was one thing, right? Like you read a ton of books, and it's funny, I had this conversation earlier. You read a ton of books, and what you realize is these books are written by someone to everyone. So there's no way to really take that book and apply it to me. I have to either, if they're available, hopefully, hire them, access their team that they've trained through some kind of consulting to get a solution. So you're reading all these books, you're trying free things, and they're just not working. And for me, I just got tired of the roller coaster ride. In my industry, where you're designing things, you're creating websites before I got into marketing and things like that. And so you're selling and your income is going up. You got to do the work. So you're not selling anymore. And you're selling again You got to do the work. So you may find yourself kind of slowly, progressively increase that. But at some point, you're going to plateau, and it's just going to keep taking these dips. And that is so uncomfortable. It's so and it's nearly impossible to scale. And it's just frustrating. And so I mean, you know, definition of insanity, I can't keep doing the same thing and expect something different to happen.
Right.
So it was like, we got to get somebody in here. We've got to talk to somebody. And I looked around at a lot of different things that we had considered. But I definitely wanted somebody who was going to be hands-on and next to me that I can grab hold of when I needed to. And that was Arnell.
That's so good. I love it. I think there's something about, you said something and it made me think, gosh, what that made me think. I think a lot of people are looking for free. And I think that's for me, that's the trigger. Like if you're looking, if you're looking for answers, right? You're like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? If you've downloaded 10 things in the last week, you might want some help. You might need to look beyond the free thing and actually ask for, right, some conversation with Arnell to unpack all the questions you have, right? Like you can't see your own problems.
Yeah, you're right. And Chris, it's interesting. Like, you know, when we talked about this last time, that's why when I went to Michael Mayer's CRT, that's why I was the first one that I'll sign up with you, Chris. I'm in.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because I saw the video show, even the 2 videos a month. I'm getting traction with that. I mean, people are asking me the conversation. I'm getting more traction from the videos we have now because it's sharing the story, right? And it's funny. I have people here like, hey, let me teach you how to market. No, it's marketing. When I learned from Michael Mager was communication. And Tim Jones is the one who gave me the book 4 years ago.
Is that right? Oh, that's the great one. There you go.
He gave me the book. I read the book, got certified, you know. And I was the first one to join and say, hey, I'll do this because in my business, it's all around conversation. Wow. You know, so I was like the way, you know, because I was like, I can't create my own word of mouth, but I can create word of mouth through the business therapist videos. Right. And I know at that point, I was like trying to figure out how to do I like Chris. I like how he's doing it. I'll sign up because I needed some type of platform because, you know, I needed to get some platform I want somebody who's been doing it for a while and done really well at it.
I feel like that's the thing. Like people are afraid of commitment. We're we want to taste a little bit of that, a little bit of this. And we're but the thing is, we'll even find people we have a connection with. We're like, I really like the way that guy talks about things, right? I really like the way Tim thinks about inbound marketing. I really like the way Arnell talks about coaching and scaling. And then we're like, oh, but I can't commit.
That's correct.
Right. And we'll use the excuse of money is probably the most common one. Well, I can't afford it. Well, I mean, that's not true. That's your small self talking, your bigger self. In fact, sorry guys, I'm on a soapbox. In fact, you have found all sorts of ways to spend money on all sorts of crazy ideas that amounted to nothing because you kept poking around in little, let's try a little bit of this and let's try a little bit of that. And if you had taken that money and concentrated into feedback and worked with somebody who knows what they're doing, like Tim and Arnell, then just do that. You're not alone. You're not alone, and you don't have to figure this out yourself. And there are people who have gone before you, and you don't have to. You can have the business and the life you've dreamed of, but you need help to get there. That's the whole point of this episode. Yes.
That is correct, and I think that the episode is you need help and get help at the beginning, not before the pain hits.
Right. I think I must have, Tim. I think I was like you, where I'm pretty independent. And it took me a long time just hitting my head against the wall of roller coasters where I needed some help. But it took me a decade to figure out, I didn't have to spend a decade on my own. I could have had help way sooner.
That's correct.
I look back and that's why I let off the way I did. If I could have changed one thing, it would have been day one.
Right. Totally.
Get the business license, get the LLC, find help.
That's, wow.
Wow. That's really good. You know, it's a much better track. Why spend the beauty of working with Arnell the way that we have is he's been here through so many of the changes in the evolution of our company. Yeah. And we didn't have to guess along the way. We could have a conversation and bounce ideas off of him and say, this is what we're thinking about doing. It feels like it's going to make us more stable. What do you think about this? What are the things you're seeing that we're not seeing? What are our blind spots here? what does this really mean for us? Are we going to take a financial hit here trying to rev this up? Like, we have these conversations, and that's really cool. You know, what does it mean for my team? You know, maybe I've got the wrong staff for this. How do I transition these folks, right? Or maybe I need more. So having someone along the journey is much better than just hitting your head against the wall, sitting in your office trying to figure it out on your own. I mean, there's so much wasted time that way.
Yeah. So good.
Yep.
So good. That was great. Arnell, any last things you want to say on that?
No, I think at the end of the episode, I mean, I think if you're a business owner, I think you gotta and it's a pride issue, or people tell you you don't need any help. And I tell them, look, don't be one of those people. Very few people today have great success of time and money. A lot of them, and I remember one gentleman, Art Rec, used to tell me they're either in quiet desperation or they're on a treadmill. And if you're in quiet desperation, it usually means you're about to quit. If you're on a treadmill, you've been on it for a long time, you're used to it and you hate to get off it. You know, I was telling somebody recently what our goal and objective is we're always going to be a treadmill on to get to the next level in the business, but we know how to get off and on, and we choose to, versus some people are stuck on it. So I always tell them, get help early, even just to get somebody to talk the stuff out and help them support. You'll get there a lot quicker and faster, and you'll never feel like you're alone. And if you get somebody who actually knows you and your business, then it's tweak here, tweak there. Hey, congratulations, great job. Oh, why'd you doing that? Versus meeting somebody, you have to restart. Yep. And then, you know, they don't know you as well. They just know business. And I think in business, you got to know the owner, the founder, what the purpose, the goal, and how they really want to turn that model around to give them time and money. And if you can do that, then, you know, everyone's a win-win.
Absolutely. It's really good. Well, let's wrap, guys, with this. Tim, if people want to connect with you because they're looking for help, they don't want to go it alone on marketing anymore. They're like, I'm sick of writing blog posts and doing Facebook ads. How do people reach out to you?
Absolutely. You can reach out to us online at eternalworks.com, eternalworks.com.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Tim. And Arnell, let's wrap with you. If people want to connect with you because they want some help, like we talked about in this episode, right? Where do people go to connect with you?
They connect me. Just go to my website, www.tanyag.net, TANYAG.net.
Perfect. Good stuff. Thanks, guys, for a great episode. Until next time.
Next time. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.